Good afternoon. Today we'll be conducting a little experiment. We are going to look and observe a couple that have had a very colourful relationship over the last couple of years. This is the dynamic relationship between waste and developers. Before we get into the detail, I wanted to conduct some background research, so I googled a couple of quotes about marriage. Turns out marriage probably wasn't the best idea for a successful relationship. First of all, for the foundation of any strong relationship is open and honest communication. For waste and planning, this comes down to policy. Policy used within the planning system is based on a hierarchy structure within documents. This includes local through to state and national. Typically, within applications, the three most common documents used are guideline documents, development control plans, and local environmental plans. Traditionally, waste policy across these documents is often fragmented and inconsistent. This often results in confusion and frustration for developers, as requirements are not easily identifiable upfront and change dependent on the policy being referenced. It is critical these documents are amended to provide consistent and clear objectives, with each document aiming to provide in the following: the LEP outlining the high-level requirements specific to zoning, such as the provision of on-site waste collection in R4 high-density zoning. The DCP outlining waste infrastructure specifications specific to the development proposed. This can be broken into categories including subdivisions, multi-unit dwellings, residential flat buildings, and commercial and industrial developments. And guidelines. These provide the opportunity to outline development-specific operational controls, which include doorway widths, ramp gradients, alloy key systems, and so on. Having a consistent policy document streamlines the development application process for developers, as they are informed of the waste infrastructure up front throughout all critical planning stages, including planning proposals, urban design, and pre-lodgement. Therefore, once an application is lodged, modifications should be minimal, allowing the application to be processed in accordance with Council's respective timeframes and processes. Returning to my marriage analogy, I wanted to just note before I start, I don't think the Commissioner is a therapist. This is just a hypothetical to facilitate our discussions. A Section 34 conciliation conference is a process where the applicant can contest a deemed refusal by Council. This allows the development to be presented to an independent party, the Commissioner, to facilitate a resolution. If no outcome is made, it is then scheduled for a court date. This process requires both parties to participate in good faith to facilitate an outcome in accordance with the respective policy documents. This reiterates the need for consistent policy across documents to ensure waste is addressed at all levels within these discussions. This comes back to the hierarchy nature, where, for instance, the LEP can override the DCP and allow consent to be given to if higher level objectives are addressed. This often results in poor outcomes if the respective documents are not aligned to complement one another, resulting in documents being played against each other to reflect the desired outcome for the given individual. Having consistent policy allows each document to reflect Council's desired outcomes and objectives. A critical tool I have found most useful is the review of concept configurations. This process is invaluable as it allows different configurations to be reviewed without the need for multiple architectural plans to be drafted and submitted by the applicant. This alleviates significant financial costs and reduces the timeframes for processing. As you can see, these can be as simple as butter paper drawings on original architecturals or on AutoCAD. This process allows the waste infrastructure to be reviewed within the project. As you can see in this example, we are reviewing the location of the turntable within the basement, allowing for increased visitor car parking, integrated multi-use loading bays for waste collection, removals and service vehicles. adjacent to elevator cores and internal corridors. Additionally, these concept configurations can be sent to respective departments, including traffic, waste, and engineering, to provide high-level reviews. This allows a holistic concept configuration to be achieved in accordance with Council's wider policy provisions. Then, once all the departments are happy with the proposed concept, it can then be submitted to Council formally in accordance with the development application process. Please note, concept configurations are not design solutions, however, are designed to facilitate innovative design outcomes. Communication. What does this mean? This involves frequent site inspections with buildings and developers. Working within the waste industry, it's easy to think, surely they would have considered this in the design. I'm sure we can all relate. I'm definitely guilty of this myself. However, we need to acknowledge that architectural plans, that the waste infrastructure is simply a square slab with a fence around it. Through working closely with builders and developers on site, I have been able to provide some background to the objectives of these particular structures. This allowed for the inclusion of natural screening, vegetation, different materials, and revised locations within the overall design. This illustrates the power of communication on site. In challenging scenarios, this process has been so successful that builders are now emailing me designs before they pour the slab to facilitate a better amenity outcome within these developments. The benefit has been that residents are able to utilise on-site infrastructure, providing heightened amenity outcomes for the development, whilst the improved design facilitates developers with marketing the adjacent dwellings to the bin bays. Traditionally, key policy documents have limited provisions for waste collection within medium and higher density developments. This has resulted in the curbside presentation of bins. As the process of urban densification continues, bin collection day often resembles walls of bins outside of streets and entire streets and even suburbs. As a part of Council's new waste collection contract, an infrastructure renewal project was designed to facilitate integrated on-site waste collection within legacy developments. This process involved numerous site inspections and meetings with residents. It was through these discussions that concept configurations could be developed. This allowed for the removal of curbside bin presentation. So far, this project has identified and worked with 120 properties over the last 9 months to develop innovative on-site configurations to permit a collect and return service. To date, over 75% of the properties have confirmed to build the infrastructure, with the remaining properties currently finalising their desired configurations before quotes can be obtained. Additionally, site inspections within higher density developments are invaluable with developers. It is through these site inspections and discussions that have allowed for the waste provisions to be incorporated within the built form. This provides context and scope to the developer and often facilitates inclusion within future developments. As you can see, the waste loading bay is often viewed as undesirable, excessive, and let's be honest, ugly. However, it is when you go out on site that these fears are often removed, as through integrated designs, that is consultation with developers at urban design, pre-lodgement, and numerous concept models, that the outcomes and benefits can be observed. This illustrates that once the rolled door is closed, waste collection within the site becomes invisible, allowing for all waste streams, bulky waste, removalists, and service vehicles to perform collection wholly within the building's built form, alleviating the negative amenity outcomes associated with traditional curbside bin collection. On-site engagement has been a success. Over the last year, we have retrofitted 15 residential flat buildings, with developers choosing to lodge Section 455 modifications and choosing to come back into Council to incorporate these changes to the waste infrastructure prior to construction commencing. As in all relationships, there is often 3 sides to every story. My side, your side, and the truth. Working within the waste industry, it's easy to stand before you today and deflect the blame onto developers, builders, and so on. However, to achieve an innovative design outcome within developments, it's critical that the waste industry listens and incorporates the key concerns of other industries. So the next time you're at your desk and thinking to yourself, why don't they understand waste? To actively take off your earmuffs and observe the development applications from a different perspective, as this will allow effective design outcomes which we all desire to be implemented across respective councils. The biggest and often hardest and most challenging aspect of all relationships is collaboration. And for most of us, this means collaboration across numerous departments of your business and both council. At first, this will mean having the courage to have difficult conversations. I can't begin to tell you how many different objects and colourful names I've been called whilst in meetings. An effective way I found to begin discussions was by first offering food. I figured people can't yell while they're eating. In all seriousness, I would advise organising informal meetings with different departments and simply introducing yourself. I am guilty of this myself, and I can't tell you how many people I know via emails. However, I wouldn't be able to spot them in the corridor. Through collaboration across different departments, this allows a dynamic understanding of the team's collective requirements to be identified. This is beneficial, for example, when reviewing waste infrastructure within a basement. Working with traffic, I was able to have a basic understanding of the requirements of ramp gradients, number of car spaces, and carriageway widths. Engineering enabled me to understand the implications of flood levels, locations of retention tanks, and the extent of cut and fill on site. Having initial understandings across these key requirements allowed me to conduct an informed review and facilitate a design that incorporates the various specifications across numerous departments, giving greater weight to the waste design, as the waste solution is viewed holistically within the wider scope, rather than in isolation, retracting from the other department's specifications. A critical component of any relationship is the ability to overcome hurdles with outside of the circle thinking. Following the amendment of the DCP in 2016, all residential flat buildings were required to accommodate on-site collection with Council's 10.5 heavy rigid vehicle. This often results in the loss of perceived yield, as major modifications to traditional designs are seen on blocks. To facilitate this transition, a developer forum was held with waste services, development services, and prominent planners and architects within Penrith LGA. This forum provided an opportunity for the applicants to put their concerns forward in a supportive environment. This allowed background information to be provided to address the various concerns, whilst allowing critical thinking to overcome other aspects. Before I read the next point, I can see some key people and contractors in the room, nervously edging forward in their seats, and my manager looking at me intensely. This is due to the fact that the following innovation through Suez and feedback received from the developer forum is currently commercial in confidence. However, what I can tell you, it is an Australian first innovation that we are looking to implement across Penrith LGA to facilitate collection within higher density developments. Unfortunately, that's all I can say until next year's conference. Sorry. So in this slide, I wanted to try to address the recurring comment I often receive during heated and colourful discussions. This is, we will just use a private contractor line. So I wanted to give you some information I found invaluable to assist these conversations. In section 496 of the Local Government Act, it outlines that a levy or charge must be provided for each parcel of rateable land. However, the words "for which a service is available" is often debated when reviewing site-restricted developments. However, working with our contractors, Suez, they gave me some invaluable wisdom. A service is always available, the price simply goes up. However, if they choose to go ahead with the private contractor, A covenant can be placed on the title, notifying the residents that the domestic waste fee will be charged in addition to the private contractor fee. This will often result in revised concept configurations with developers. Working with developers, I found that consistent and collective language often results in the best outcomes. This was the focus of my recent master's dissertation when I looked to price the impacts poor waste infrastructure has upon a dwelling's resale value. This was based on existing research where inanimate objects were given a financial value. Curbside collection was broken down into 3 components: noise during collection, smell, the organic material, and visual, the rows of bins. Using this, a coefficient of 9.85% was revealed. For example, if we take a conservative view and collection is viewed at 3 out of 7 business days, this will result in a devaluation of $23,000 per unit, or $2.4 million for the entire development. Through the use of this language and pricing of disamenity, waste is able to become a key consideration with conversations and future buyers. I wanted to quickly cover the following. As you're aware, the Greater Sydney Regional Plan outlines a vision over the next 40 years for the 3 cities addressing infrastructure, livability, productivity and sustainability. This provides an invaluable opportunity for the waste industry to review critical planning documents, including LEPs, DCPs and guideline documents. This allows waste to be effectively integrated within Council's vision over the coming years. Penrith Council has been working closely with SquareLink, the EPA and regional waste coordinators to develop draft templates and responses to the various planning controls. Thank you.